Morning, members. Welcome to the meeting of the Community and Housing Overview Committee. You will see that the first item on the agenda is appointment of chair, and members will be aware that at the annual council meeting in May, council determined that the True Independent Group would chair this committee. The committee is advised that Councillor Marion Bacon is the chair of the committee for the municipal year. So I'll hand over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Morning, everyone. And I think we've got some councillors observing as well today, which is good to see. And anyone can ask questions at this committee. Right, the second agenda item is appointment of vice chair. Do we have any nominations, please?
Sorry, could you just use your mic? Sorry.
Sorry, I propose Councillor Kevin Rush.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Gladys. Any further nominations? Councillor Brown.
Can I propose Councillor Dale Sylvester, please?
Do we have a seconder? Thank you very much. Right, we've got two nominations then. Could you all show in favour of, first of all, Councillor Kevin Rush? One, two, three, five, is that all?
5, 6, 7.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Dale Sylvester now, please.
3, 4.
Okay, thank you.
So that's 7 for Councillor Rush and 4 for Councillor Sylvester.
Thank you. Welcome back, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you for all the help from last year as well, Kevin. Right, agenda item 3, apologies, Kerry. Do we have any?
We haven't got any apologies, but we have 2 substitutions. Councillor Helen Brown is substituting for Councillor Dale Sylvester, and Councillor Gladys Healy is substituting for Councillor Jeff Collette.
Thank you very much. Item 4, declaration.
Apologies to interrupt, but can I just ask whoever's just joined the meeting, CHBDJAT, to put your camera on? Thank you.
Right.
I'll just say the leader will be here. He's just got a meeting with the minister and he'll be here shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, well, item 4, declarations of interest, including whipping whipping declarations, and to receive any declarations and advise members accordingly. Do we have any? No.
Councillor Tina Claydon's indicating online, Chair.
Councillor Claydon.
Yeah, I have connections with a community fridge in Mould, which is in one of the items there.
Thank you, Councillor Claydon. Anyone else? No? Okay. Item 5, urgent matters as agreed by the chair. Notice of items which, in the opinion of the chair, should be considered at the meeting as a matter of urgency, and there aren't any. Okay. Item 6, the minutes on pages 5 to 8, and to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of March. Seems a long time ago now. Do we have the mover as a correct record, please? Thank you, Councillor Banks. Do we have a seconder?
Councillor Bibby's indicated.
Councillor Bibby, thank you very much. Could we all show in favour of the minutes? Thank you.
There's some that vote for. Any against?
Oh, I've been told I should ask. Is there anyone against? No. No, that's it. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, the forward work programme and action tracking, pages 9 to 18. And this is to consider the forward work programme of the Community and Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and to inform the committee of progress against actions from previous meetings. And I'll go over to Kerry.
Thank you, Chair. Members will see the current forward work programme on page 13 of the agenda. And you will also notice since the last meeting and the agreement of the schedule of meetings at the AGM in May, all future meeting dates from September have been added to the forward work programme. At this stage, all I've done is added in the annual reports and regular reports that the committee get. We are proposing to meet the chair, vice chair and senior officers and chief officer in August so that we can populate the forward work programme with the reports going forward. So if any members have got any items that they would like to see included in the forward work programme, please let us know. There are no proposed changes to those items listed for the next meeting on the 8th of July. Moving on to the action tracking document, you will see that there's an informal item at the end of the agenda today, which completes the action, the first action there listed. In relation to the training on homelessness, we have really struggled to find a date in members' diaries for June and July, but we have got 2 dates now in September, and an email will be going out to all members with the details of the sessions very shortly. In relation to the action there, which was in response to a question from Councillor Dolphin on the developments across the county. Hopefully all members of the committee have received that. It was emailed out to the committee yesterday. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Has anyone got any requests to go on the forward work programme? No? Right, the action...
Councillor Banks is indicated.
Councillor, sorry, I couldn't see you, Councillor Banks.
Thank you, Chair. All I wondered was the voids going back on it, just to see where we are with them.
Okay, I think that's coming further on in the agenda today, actually.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, action tracking. I've been asked by Councillor Dale Sylvester to I'm making you a councillor now, to Sian. He says he's not heard from you, Sian, in relation to the minutes here.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I did feedback. I think Kerry and I briefly discussed it. Councillor Sylvester was asking for a full breakdown for how many applications would be suspended at any one time in terms of the reason for that. So that could be pending information, waiting proof of child benefit, medical evidence. That isn't a function that exists within the system. I've checked that out with our IT department, so it's not. I can't provide the data, the breakdown for him.
So did you contact?
It's with Kerry, so it's my fault. I'll apologise to Councillor Sylvester on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you mind just contacting him and telling him that? No. Okay, thank you. Sorry?
The microphone was on.
So, and that the committee notes the progress made in completing the outstanding actions. Do I have a mover, please? Thank you very much. Councillor Rush and a seconder. Councillor Davis, thank you. Can you all show in favour?
Carried, Chair.
That's carried. Thank you very much. Right, we now go on to agenda item 8, communal heating charges. Excuse me, pages 19 to 24. This is the report of the Chief Officer, who is Vicky Clark. And I've got the Cabinet Member for Housing and Communities, and I think we have 2 now. We have the leader and also the deputy leader, and neither of whom are here yet. But we'll go over to the Chief Officer. She's over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. So this is the annual report that comes through the committee cycle to propose changes to the communal heating charges. As members are aware, we operate 8 communal heating schemes within Flintshire, and on an annual basis now, the council renegotiates the fuel tariff that's to be charged, which we did earlier this year, and the rateable charge has decreased, and therefore that decrease is approximately 17% on average across the 8 communal schemes. Those charges are listed in Appendix 1 of the report, and it does show the percentage decrease for each scheme. I suppose the caveat to this is that we did negotiate that new fuel tariff prior to the recent war in the Middle East, so prices look to be fairly stable. However, you know, we are conscious that this may have more of an impact in 27-28. Just to remind members, the communal heating charges are based on the prior year's energy use for each of those schemes, alongside the current gas prices, and we do aim to ensure full cost recovery on each of those schemes. We do pay those fuel charges in advance, initially through the council's heating reserve account, and then we do collect that from contract holders in addition to their weekly rent charge. Again, because it's communal heating, the council charges contract owners for the energy that they've consumed within those blocks, and that's a basic flat rate currently for each of the tenants in those individual blocks. However, as you'll see from the report, we are progressing with the installation of individual metering for tenants, and in 1.11 of the report, there is a breakdown there of heat meter installation dates. We have completed all the blocks now, apart from the 3 heights in Flint. And the reason that those have been delayed is that we are currently doing substantial amounts of grant-funded fire safety works on those blocks. But the estimated timescales are outlined in the report. We will be implementing a phased approach to individual billing, and that's to enable us to, once those meters are installed, to ensure that that data that we are receiving through those meters is accurate, and that tenants will get their individual bill. What we're also looking to do is ensure that we monitor the bills for individual tenants, so that if there are any concerns either about the tenants not using their heating because they're concerned about the bill, that we get out there very quickly and support them with that, but also actually where it might seem to be quite high, that again tenants are supported, or that we look that if there are any issues. We are also in the process of installing in additional heating controls within properties where it's feasible to do so, so that tenants can actually control and regulate their own heating. And again, as part of a planned programme, we will replace any communal heating systems that are reaching the end of its life cycle. So, let's say the Appendix 1 is the planned charges for 26-27, and as you can see, there is a decrease for each scheme on those charges in relation to the prior year's charge. Don't know whether Rachel, you've got anything to add to that, or Sean on the individual metering?
Yeah, thanks, Vicky. Yeah, just to add, we are reviewing all schemes across Flintshire, so if we've got any concerns with the efficiency of those systems, we're looking to make some changes as well. So, for example, we have got communal areas within the blocks where if we feel they can be heated more efficiently, that's a change that we'd make as well to improve those running costs for our tenants. Okay.
Just to add as well, sorry, you'll see that Flu and Bueno has had quite a large decrease compared to some of the others. The reason for that is that not only has it had a reduction in kilowatt usage from last year, the year before to this year, so that's seen a reduction. It's also had a credit on the account from the year before as well, so we've taken that into account. So that's why that's considered like higher than the others.
Thank you all. It's wonderful to see all these minus figures in the right-hand column on page 24. I think you should come and look at my heating bills. do something with them. All right, do we have, Councillor Kevin Rush, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one, Vicky. Now everyone's going to have their own gas meters put in their properties. Obviously, if you've got your own home, you get it checked once a year. When it was just communal, obviously, you just checked that one. What will be the procedure for checking all these properties now? Will they be given an annual service on that property?
Thank you, Councillor Rush.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Sean wants to come in, but we will continue to do a gas service every 12 months. We're required to by law. So, yeah, there will be continue to be a gas service.
Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair, dear Humber. My question, I'm sorry if it sounds pedantic or whatever, I must apologise for that because I am not on this committee. But I am quite worried for care of the elderly. When elderly people are in their flat and they are not using the heating because of poverty, as we know it is a great problem. But I am worried, how do you monitor and know that that elderly person is not using their heating? And is there people who go frequently to watch? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, so currently on the communal heating scheme, we won't have, they don't have as much control over the heating that they're using because it's a communal scheme. So actually, in terms of the heating, the council more or less control that. So we are confident that properties are being heated adequately. When we move to individualised metering, as I've just said, we will be monitoring those tenants where we're concerned that usage is very low, and we will then be going out to visit them just to ensure that that like I said, the concern isn't financial, and if it's financial, and we've got a report later on the agenda today about what we do to support tenants financially. So the fact that we're moving to individualised heating, we'll very quickly be able to identify tenants where we're concerned that they're not using the heating because they're worried about their finances. But yes, so officers will go out, and we've already we've got some schemes where the meters have already been implemented. We have already been out to those tenants where the usage is low.
It's an excellent question, isn't it, really? And we'll want to keep an eye on, I think. Thank you. Any more questions? No? So we'll go to the recommendation on page 20. Right.
John Bibby's got his hand raised.
Councillor Bibby.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just wish to formally move the recommendation.
I'll tell you what it is now eventually. Thank you. That the committee support the changes to the current heating charges at council properties with communal heating schemes as outlined in the report. All changes to take effect from the 3rd of August 2026. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Davis, thank you very much indeed. Can we all show in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 9, cost of living and welfare reform, pages 25 to 40. It's to provide an update on the impact of welfare reforms and the work that's ongoing to mitigate them. And we're over to Jen Griffiths now, I think. Oh, I think the Chief Officer said she wanted to go over straight away to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. So this is a biannual report that comes to this committee to provide an update in terms of some of the impacts of the cost of living crisis and welfare reform that we have statistics to support, and to highlight the schemes that are currently running and the work of the welfare reform team predominantly. And also we've now latterly included some work that we're doing around food poverty in the report as well. As it's an update report, I wasn't planning to go through it section by section. The only thing I would want to highlight to the committee is a new scheme, which is around the off-grid and oil fuel support scheme. This was announced in April, and we have been waiting for Welsh Government guidance on this, which has just come through. So we are hoping that we can start to get those payments out, certainly in the next month or so, to those eligible households. So those just a £200 payment as a one-off for people who are in receipt of council tax reduction and they are off grid or they are using oil. So we have got a list from Welsh Government, which we're currently cross-referencing with the information we've got in the service, and we'll make those payments. We'll put the scheme open on the system. So we've got all the systems in place ready to go with it. We're just finalising the details, but that's the only new scheme that we've got at the moment. So I don't propose to go through the report, Chair. It's a regular report, so happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, please? No. There was one thing that I did want to highlight, and it was just the shocking figure, really, of the Joseph Rowntree Foundation concerning child poverty in Wales. It's 1 in 3 children. I just, it's beggars belief, doesn't it? And hopefully it is not that high in Flintshire. I think you said, Jen, that you don't really have that figure for Flintshire. No. Okay. So there are no questions. Got off very lightly. We'll go to the recommendation to endorse the ongoing work to manage the impacts that welfare reform and the cost of living crisis has and will continue to have on some of the most vulnerable residents in Flintshire. We have the mover, please. Councillor Rush, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Healy, thank you very much. Could we all show in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 10, housing rent income, pages 41 to 48. To provide the latest operational update on the collection of housing rent. And we're back over to Jen Griffiths again. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a biannual report, but I am going to go into a bit of detail on this one because it is a good news story. We have managed to reduce the overall rent arrears by 365k during the year. We had some challenge last year, and rightly so, around whether or not our reduction that we reported last year was due to the significant sums that we wrote off during the year. But you'll see from the report in table 1, in section 109, actually the write-offs for 25-26 are the lowest they've ever been, and we've still managed to reduce the overall rent arrears balance. So that's credit to Dawn, who's in the room today, and the team for working really hard and using the Mobisoft software to deal with households on a risk base rather than trawling through loads of reports and dealing with people they don't need to deal with. So I'm confident that system is working really well and the team are fantastic. The other point to note is that there was 6 evictions in 25-26, which you'll notice from the table in 107 is significantly higher. It was higher, the last time it was high was in 21-22. And that is because we obviously are still working to the Welsh Government's ambition to no evictions into homelessness. But we have still got to collect the rent. So we have the case review panel, which I know we've discussed in this committee many times before, where anything that's going anywhere near eviction comes to the panel and we determine if it's a can't or a won't pay. If it's a can't pay, we flood with support to try and support the person to come back on track in terms of their rent payments. And if it's a won't, then we take a hard line. So that case panel is working really, really well. But just as a positive note for the committee, in each of the evictions, we found that the resident, they weren't there really, or they'd found themselves alternative accommodation. So none of the six tenants came back through the homelessness route. I know many years ago that was the problem. We were evicting and then it was costing us a fortune through the homelessness route. So actually through the changes in systems and processes, I'm satisfied that yes, it was 6 evictions, which is not what we want. However, none of those people represented as homeless. So actually they found alternative accommodation or they'd already gone. So that's really positive. The other thing that the committee like to consider is the banded arrears, particularly those who have an account balance of over £5,000. That has reduced by one case in the last year. Doesn't sound like much, but when you're looking at a debt that size, I think it is a significant shift to a reduction. And actually, we've done some more detailed analysis, and we have done for the last few times this report's come through actually around those cases that are over 5,000, and I'm confident that we're either taking action towards repossessing the property, or we've got it under control in terms of arrangements to pay, either through court order or other arrangements. So all of those 32 cases are being actively managed. And that's all I have to say, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. It's good to have some positive news in this day and age, isn't it? But do you mind if I just ask, with the 5,000 plus arrears, what's the highest arrears?
I didn't think you were going to ask that, Chair, and I don't know the answer. I'm sorry, but I can certainly find out and report back.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, please? Who is that? Councillor Dolphin, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask something very similar, but mine's on the 2,500 to 5,000. How many of those are just below the 5,000?
Lots of tricky questions today. I don't know is the simple answer. I don't have that information to hand. But I think what is important is the 2,500 to 5,000 has reduced during the year from 126 accounts to 97. So they're pushing down in terms of their balances. So that's a positive, but I can find out. I guess it's a moving feast as well, isn't it? You know, so it might, what I could tell you when I get the information could be different tomorrow. So I don't know. They kind of roll around in between the balances as we go through the recovery process. So I can have a look and perhaps report back.
Through you, Chair, that's why I asked the question, because I could see 126 down to 97 is quite a big jump. And I wondered how many are just below that 5,000 mark, and that's why. But thank you.
Yeah, if you could just report back to us, Jen, thank you. Councillor Banks. Councillor Banks.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I didn't put my hand up, did I?
Sorry, that's okay. I thought you did, sorry.
No.
Okay. Anyone else want to ask any questions? Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just querying where there is disease and no estate. Does that go to the family? Does the family pay, or is it just a bad debt?
Thank you, and great question. What we have highlighted in previous reports, and it's probably remiss of me not to do it on this occasion, is we do concentrate the bulk of our write-offs on former tenant arrears, because they're the most difficult to collect. Where somebody passes away and there is no estate, it would go to a bad debt, and we would write it off because we have no other option. That's why you'll see we keep the former tenant arrears really low. And we only put our energy into collecting those that we're able to collect, really, and we focus mainly on the current tenants because that's our most important area, I think.
Any other questions from anyone? I'm sorry?
Councillor Bibby's got his hand up.
I have a feeling I know what he's going to say. Councillor Bibby?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just very, very positive report. I think the 364,589 reduction in arrears is a very, very good figure. You know, exactly the direction we want to be moving in. Again, I think there was quite fair challenge last financial year. Was this just a bit of a blip just with the removal of the water charges? I think that was a fair challenge, but I think from what we can see in this report, it is actually the efforts and the measures that have been put in place are having a very positive effect in reducing the arrears.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bibby, and you just proved me wrong as to what I thought you were going to say. Apologies. Councillor Jones.
Sorry, it was just in relation to the question that was asked about the from Councillor Dolphin. If you know there's 126 cases that were valued at 424,000, that would be an average of 6,416 each. 97 cases would be an average of 10,464. So you could imagine that perhaps there are lesser cases, but it's moving towards that 5,000 rather than moving down towards the 2,500. That's just my quick calculation, which is probably close.
Thank you. I appreciate your question, and obviously, of course, it would be potentially viewed that way, and that's what the scrutiny committee is for. But actually, all of the arrears cases have reduced. So if we've got a reduction in arrears in the 2,500 to 5,000, it's because they've got less arrears. So they're moving down rather than moving up because the cases are being actively managed. Does that answer the question?
Sorry, it wasn't really a question. It was trying to, if the average now in 25-26 is 10,464, then individual cases are moving higher towards the 5,000, because in 24-25, although it was 424,000, it's clearly a reduction, but there was 126 people within that cohort. So you could imagine that the amounts for each one is getting higher, rather than, although overall it's less cases.
I mean, we could go back and do all day because the other flip of that coin is that people in the lower end have dropped down, and obviously the people with the higher arrears, it's going to take them longer to pay it off. So it's difficult, isn't it? It's a bit, juggling with the figures, I suppose, and we can only report on what we know in there. We could spend a lot of time working on averages and things, but actually the figures are what they are, and I'm confident that we're doing everything we can to reduce the arrears. I think Rachel wants to come in. Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think what you can see from the numbers quite clearly is normally when you've got arrears, if you're really focusing on the higher arrears, you'll see the other ones like kind of building up over time. And what you can clearly see here from one year to the next is not only the numbers lower, but also the amounts are lower as well, which means not only are the larger arrears starting to come down, but actually there's a control on all the other levels of banded arrears as well from the beginning to the end. So I think that's a positive message.
Yes, thank you, Jenna and Rachel. And we are appreciative of the hard work that you do. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I'm just going to bring it back down to basics. So this is another year where the rent arrears have reduced again. And I would definitely say just keep doing what you're doing, and early intervention is absolutely the key. And that's the proof is in the pudding, and it's been there for a couple of years now. So keep them coming down and keep the early intervention, and obviously all of the help that people are getting as well. Thank you.
Yes, hear to that. And thank you. Any more questions? No, so we'll go to the recommendation on...
Sorry, Councillor Healy.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Healy, I didn't see you then.
Thank you very much for the hard work and this fantastic report. But I do have a question here. On forwarding addresses, when people leave without address. I see here it's 19,381.90, and then it's written off. What do you do to recover this money? Because it is quite a large amount of money. How do you collect the debt? Thank you.
Well, we don't. That's why we have the bad debt provision within the HRA rent account, where we can't recover the debt and we don't know where they've gone. And we don't just say, oh, we don't know where they've gone, or we'll forget it and write it off. The team do work very hard with tracing agents, and we do everything we possibly can. But we do take that pragmatic approach. When we've done everything we can, we cut it off and we write that off as a bad debt. But we do make provision for that within the housing revenue account.
Thank you.
I think it has to be said that that's the last resort, isn't it? And it is in most businesses, I'm afraid. You do have to write off certain debts. Thank you. Any more questions? No, so I will go to the recommendation on page 41, which is to note the year-end rent collection outturn for 25-26. And do you mind if I change endorse to support the actions being taken? Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Brown? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Healy, thank you. Could we all show? Thank you very much. Agenda item 11, housing assets policy updates, repairs, recharges and voids. And it's to provide an overview on the new policies relating to repairs, recharges and voids. And we go over to Sean O'Donnell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just going to give a bit of an overview. Won't go into too much detail on each of the policies, but just want to stress the importance what the service are working on and the portfolio. We've been discussing this across the portfolio for some time. If you note on 102, the policies that we are focusing on, and these are all currently being worked on in the background, we're going to be talking about the repairs policy today, the recharges and also the voids policy. Then we're going to be moving on to tenant improvement policy. We've got the no access, and it moves through a suite of policies that the service need. The importance of having these policies in place is something to demonstrate not only to the council and the service portfolio, what should we be working to, what are our legal obligations, and share them with our tenants as well, because it does highlight what their obligations will be as a contract holder. So just moving into the repairs policy, what we're focusing on is the repairs service, what we're obliged to do. We've got a number of priorities, how repairs are categorised in terms of their urgency. We've highlighted out of hours. We talk about the right to repair appointments, post inspections, pre and post inspections. We also talk about quality control and no access. What members will note is these policies refer to other policies and other documents as well. They're all interlinked. So just to move through the repairs policy, we talk about the aims of the policy, what are we obliged to do, as I mentioned before, as a council, what our legal obligations are, what the regulations we must work to, and those standards that we should meet. We talk in a bit of detail about the repairs categories. So, for example, we have the emergency categories there. When should we attend, and what are those types of works that you'd find within that category? Urgent category of work, we have routine repairs, and also we have planned maintenance. And they're the types of repairs that sometimes can be packaged up into planned maintenance programs. The repairs policy goes on to talk about how we expect repairs to be reported. And we have communicated to tenants over the years the easiest and safest ways for them to contact our customer contact centre, provide as much detail as they possibly can, and then we will send our teams out to address their concerns or their service request. So that's the repairs policy. It goes into quite a bit of detail, but happy to take any questions on that, Chair, before I move on to the recharges policy. That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, it's a very comprehensive document, isn't it, really? I think everyone should look at this, whether you're a tenant of Flintshire or not, to look at your houses and see how they should be looked after, to be honest. Do we have any questions, please? Councillor Dolphin.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions for you, Sean. One is, it says the quality of repair. I've just had a tenant had a chain link fence fixed with plastic ties. That to me is not a quality repair. I have had them now put on the programme for a new fence, but the tenant was told that was the repair and it was good enough. And the second one is, when we have the responsibility of the tenant to report the repairs, I have a couple of tenants who are I'm going to say they're special needs. They live on their own, but they have a 3-bedroom property. They don't report anything. So when I've had a neighbour come to me and say, you know, this is wrong, whatever, they've tried to report it and they were told that they can't, the tenant needs to do it. The tenant is not going to do it. I have done it on their behalf now, but how do we get around that? Because I can't be the only one who has tenants with special needs. Thank you, Sean.
That's a good question. Oh, to Sean. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Just to answer the first question, the chain link fencing that has been fixed, that will be on a temporary basis. We don't recognise chain link fencing as a secure boundary anymore. So all chain link fencing across Flintshire is scheduled for replacement. What we have an obligation to do as a council is to ensure those boundaries are safe and secure. I'm sure you're aware we do have open plan estates, so a number of council properties don't have boundaries. But there are times where the fence is just temporary fixed whilst we get out there. So what you may see, sometimes the council have utilised an orange barrier tape with some stakes for now, just to define that boundary until we can get there and undertake the repair. So I can assure you that will be a temporary repair to the chain link fencing. We don't repair chain link fencing anymore. What we do is we'll undertake a make safe repair and we have to replace it. And Welsh Government have advised us of that as well. It's not considered a secure boundary anymore. Is that okay? Does that answer that one? And if you could provide me the address after this meeting, we'll look into that for you, please. With regards to tenants reporting repairs, it is the tenant's responsibility to report repairs to us. Obviously, we recognise that not all tenants are able to do so. So, again, if you could provide me the details of who was trying to report the repair, and we can look into that a bit further. We do have advocates on behalf of tenants, carers, councillors such as yourself reporting repairs. The one thing that we ask that you do is when you're reporting the repair, you have the tenant with you, or you have as much information as possible. So, for example, if we look at a fencing repair, we ask when that tenant's going to be available for us, because we're making repairs by appointment now. And then we'll be asking, well, where is the fence? Is it on the front or the rear? What type of fencing is it? And how dangerous is it? How soon do we need to get out? So sometimes it is very helpful if you can report repairs whilst you have the tenant or an advocate with you at the time. But yeah, we do recognise that all tenants can report repairs. So I hope that answers that.
Yeah, can I come back on that, Chair, please?
Of course you can, yes.
The tenant I have, he has social services go in and help him out. They don't report repairs on his behalf because he doesn't care. His house, I dread what you're going to find when you go in there, because he's not going to allow you in there if he can help it. And that's part of his disability. You know, he's not being awkward. That's part of his disability. But I don't know how we get around. Maybe we need to have somebody from our side that can go in, whether it's our a support officer or something, I don't know. But we need to look at ways where we can enter somebody's property who has this disability, whether we work with social services and say to them, we need you to be there at a certain date and arrange it that way. I don't know, but we need to find a way around this. All right, thanks, Sean.
Sean?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. That's a genuine concern that we all share. So I think if you have any concerns like that, please report them to us. We have a process for reporting concerns with properties internally as well. So, for example, we as a repairs and maintenance department have the right to maintain and repair our property, and that means gaining access to the property as well, as long as we provide reasonable notice, of course. We have legal obligations with regards to gas servicing, electrical testing. So again, any of our operatives that go in, if they have any concerns whatsoever, we've got a very robust process where they report those concerns to their team leader in the first instance, and those concerns are then reported to housing management for escalation. So it's about, I think we've talked about this before, it's about eyes wide open when we're visiting these properties, not just to undertake the job that the trade operative or inspector or surveyor may have been assigned, and any concerns should be reported through to us. So if you could do the same, please, Councillor, any concerns you have, report them to us, and we'll certainly look into them. Thank you.
Sean, just on that, I think it was mentioned that social services go in to see this gentleman. I mean, can't they report to you, and do they?
Yeah, they do. They do on regular occasions, to be honest. So they have sometimes a greater understanding of those tenants' needs, the support requirements. So they work very, very closely with ourselves across housing management, accommodation support as well. So that intelligence is quite vital for us. They can report repairs to us. And what's happened before, sometimes, as Councillor Dolphin has mentioned, the case can be quite complex and quite sensitive. So rather than report the repair to us, we'll send an inspector or surveyor to go and assess what repairs are required and to work with social services as well. So yeah, that's something that we promote. We do have joint meetings with social services on a regular basis, and quite a few cases are referred to us for escalation. So again, this might be the case. We might already know about this property. We might be in the sort of process of trying to gain access or working with our tenant. So if the councillor can just relay that address to us, that would be really useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Sean. This is not a question. This is just to thank you for this fantastic report. And I don't have a lot of council houses in my ward, but the ones that were there were 2 derelict ones. The job that was undertaken was to the highest spec, and the people who are in it are very happy. And as well, all the work you have done for another complex, which is in my ward, was done to a high spec, and people are very happy. So I just want to thank you for that. And if you take that back to whoever is doing the work or whatever, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Healy, and I agree with that as well. The work I've seen has been first class. Any more questions? Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Not on the policy, Sean, but you started it by mentioning the contact centre. So I think most of us around the table will agree that when people phone up the contact centre for either, we're talking about housing repairs, aren't we? So we'll stick with housing repairs. They're sitting there, they're waiting for 30, 40, 50 minutes. They just absolutely give up, and then they'll either take to social media and explain how awful it is and how awful housing is, which we know that it isn't. But what I think we need to make abundantly clear is that when people are ringing up for housing repairs or street scene services, now they're the 2 front-facing services that I see that people call about more often than the others, is that I think we need to make it as a council very, very clear that they are not phoning the housing department, and the housing department are not ignoring their phone calls for 40, 50 minutes, an hour, do you know? And the same goes for the street scene side of things as well, because people are kind of like, my bin's missed and I've been on the phone forever, and they give up. And by the time they come to us, they're really annoyed anyway, aren't they? Because they've wasted all of that time. So I think as a council, and I've said this previously, so no one can come back at me, previously, that we do need to look at going back to dedicated services, contact centre for housing, and dedicated as well for street scene services.
Absolutely. I mean, street scene and housing, they are so difficult to get through to on the telephone. And it's an easy answer to say that they should put their complaints online. But, you know, there are lots of people who do not go online and just, you know, they don't have the facility. And we're not blaming you, Sean, but it is something that needs to be looked at. And Councillor Brown's suggestion of it going back to the way it used to be, having individual phone numbers, I think is a way forward. And also having a facility for them to leave messages so that they don't feel as if, you know, they're just hanging on for nothing. I think so. Thank you.
It's not a question, just I suppose it is a bit of a question to Sean. You mentioned the landlord's duties and the checks that are done on our assets. What is our expectation? Because I know when some of these properties actually become voids in the future, there's usually like high cost repairs or high cost to put that void back into use. If we were doing more regular checks, wouldn't that reduce that cost?
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose there's quite a number of responses to that question. In terms of our obligations as a landlord and Welsh Government's expectations of what the work should be, the standard of void that should go back. When we look at a capital investment programme, we regularly replace kitchens and bathrooms when they're reaching the end of the life cycle. What we find with void properties, empty properties, is that now those kitchens and bathrooms that we invested in as a council 10 years ago are now still in very good condition. There's another component within that asset that's starting to fail, such as the plastering work. Once we address that and we complete major plastering works across the whole of the county, there'll be something else that's due. So I think what we'll always see, because we're in the world of compliance now, health and safety, we've got the Rent at Homes Act, Wales, WHS2, etc., is that all the properties that we refurbish are going to have to maintain quite a high standard. What we do find and what we're working with across the portfolio is that at times, as Councillor Brown has mentioned, it might be difficult to report the repair. So that repair becomes worse. The cost of that repair is obviously increased. What we are doing across the asset service, we're undertaking stock condition surveys. Again, now we haven't done that for some time, and we'll be visiting every property across Flintshire to undertake a stock condition survey. We're also working with housing management and, as I mentioned before, social services, accommodation support as well. What we're trying to address, and I think I've mentioned it to this committee before, is when we have difficulty accessing properties. So we do a lot of repairs by appointment now, and that's helping us get in. That's helping us become more efficient, gain access to the properties first time. And the policy that I'm going to lead on to shortly, I think, is something that will answer further questions on what you've raised, which is the recharge policy. And that will help us. That's a tool for us to advise the tenant, this is what you could be recharged for when you leave a property empty. And this is what you could be recharged for if you don't report repairs to us, because they've got their obligations themselves as a contract holder. So this tool, this policy is something that we'll be working to, but also our tenants must comply with as well. And what we've tried to do is make it a fair and transparent policy as well, which we think that tenants will utilise. So I'd like to move on to that, if that's okay with you, Councillor and Chair. Is that okay?
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate that. In the private sector, I think normally you'd have an annual check. So you'd at least, I think, in the private sector, have an annual check on a property. Is that something we do that the housing officers do at the moment? Because that would actually mitigate against some of that extra cost of void and some of that extra cost of doing repairs later.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's something that we do across the service area. Again, I could pass over to the service manager for housing. We don't have the volume of staff to undertake visits to every single property. So what we've been doing in the background is working on a priority list for housing management to focus on. So, for example, no access is the biggest thing for us. It's a waste of council money to send an operative in a council van to undertake a repair, not to gain access. If we think about the appointments and the back office support that's been allocated to that job, we have concerns across assets in terms of maybe the condition, the access arrangements. So they're going to be highlighted to housing management and accommodation support to ascertain if the tenant needs any support or any action taken against them in terms of recharges. So that's something that is going to be worked on in the next couple of months.
Councillor Brown.
Sorry, yeah, it's something that I'm quite well versed on with this, because that was clearly one of my priorities, and I spoke to a number of the officers about this. And I think it's fair to say that we've all seen the standard of the void properties that are returned back to housing ready for our tenants. And you know, the second to none, they're fantastic. And I've always been about, we must protect the investment, we must protect that property. So going back to the conversations that I've had previous, was that once we you know, you're doing a matrix. I understand that. Once you've got the matrix, then it is up then to each individual housing officer. They know their patches. They know where they need to go. And sometimes it's those people that, you know, that don't engage with the council as well. They might be the ones that need more help. There could be things going on behind closed doors that, you know, that we others don't know about. So I think once this matrix is ready and implemented, then it's on the housing officers then that know their patch, that go out and they do protect the investment that we put into the housing stock, rather than having really bad properties come back and then you've got other people, because it's the HRA that's paying for it, isn't it? Basically, you've got other people which are funding poor and bad behaviour.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we do look forward to seeing. Did you say in a month's time, or that we're going to see this new matrix?
The matrix that the member's referring to, we've completed the individual matrices, so they've been completed now. What we're working on finally, which should be ready in the next month or so, is a dashboard that collates all those matrices together. So, for example, we have quite a detailed report on gas servicing. These are the properties we haven't been able to access for whatever reason it may be. And it might be a very similar scenario to, as Councillor Dolphin mentioned, there could be quite complex, sensitive issues that and support requirements we haven't gained access. So what the dashboard will do is highlight to our colleagues in housing, these are the concerns we've got. We don't know what the issues may be, but these are the reasons why we need you to go and have a look and find out what we can do. So therefore, for example, we've got access arrangements for repairs, for gas servicing, electrical testing, any reports that have been sent to us with regards to any mould or condensation concerns that the tenant may have. Again, we've created guides for ventilation so they can be passed over to the tenant. The importance of ventilating the home and heating it at the right time. We've also got reports that are going to be completed to say these are the tenants who have reported the highest number of repairs this year, and these are the tenants who have reported no repairs to us. Why is that? So again, highlighting all these, I suppose, this intelligence for housing management for them to go and act on. At the moment, what we're doing is doing it in very much sort of isolation, or sort of sending a housing officer to go and deal with a gas servicing issue, and then the next day to go and deal with a similar issue on the same road or same address. So we're going to bring all that together, and it will be, as Councillor Brown mentioned, a priority matrix for housing management to focus on. So that's nearing the end of our journey, really. It's taken a long time to get there. It's very, very complex, the data we look at, but the dashboard is very simple and easy to utilise.
Well, it's very encouraging. I think Jen would like to come back in.
Thank you, Chair. Just to give a bit of context as well, so we, when we were discussing it, we did a huge piece of work in housing management over the last probably 18 months, 2 years around the sheltered housing review. And we could solve this really quickly by tripling the number of housing officers we've got, but that's not good value for money for the residents, because also that then creates pressure on the rest of the infrastructure. So what Sean and I have been working on is actually making every contact count. So whomever from the housing team has contact in their household, they do that quick check and then report that back in, and it goes through the matrix for those priority visits for the housing officer or the sheltered housing officer. And, you know, we've kind of done a lot of work with the sheltered housing team who were previously the wardens, and they do kind of pick up some of that housing management role. Not the entire role, because they've all got housing officers as well, but they do pick up some of that. So it's about building that capacity and knowledge base within the sheltered housing team. And then a bit like the rent arrears, I suppose, the housing officers are used to address the areas in most need, because the easiest thing we could do would be to triple the size of the number of housing officers we've got. But actually, that's not good value for money for the residents. So the matrix will give us those pinch points and help us to go where it's most needed, and so that we can get the best use out of that. And we've also got a new system for the housing officers so that we can track all of this as well. And data's been a huge thing that we've been lacking in the service, but those developments all do seem to be coming together at the same time. But the housing management focus for the last 18 months, 2 years, has been on the sheltered housing review, which has been a huge piece of work and very successful. So we are actively working towards it, because we totally agree, you know, every contact needs to count in that, and we need to get ahead of understanding where we can intervene to protect our asset and protect our investment, but also to make sure the needs of the tenant are met. It
will be brought back to this committee, I presume. Yeah, okay. So Councillor Dolphin?
Yeah.
Sorry, you didn't want to let me unmute. I might be jumping the gun. I'm going into the recharge costs. Am I jumping the gun here, or can I ask the question now?
If you can just hang on a little longer, you've just jumped in already.
So I might have, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Welcome. Happy to take a question when I've completed this. So the recharges policy, and then we'll move on to the voids policy as well. May answer quite a few questions that might be raised or queries you may have. The rechargeable repairs policy highlights the types of things that we potentially will recharge for and the things that we won't. So again, goes into a bit of detail. It talks about the fair wear and tear of a property. We don't expect the tenant to pick up those costs. They're with the council. But there are times where I think in the past, a good example of this is where a tenant's phoned up to say they're going to be recharged £150 to change a door lock. So obviously they could possibly do that themselves a lot cheaper, or they could get a friend or family friend to change the lock. What they don't know is a lot of our schemes are suited across Flintshire. So we've got master keys in the event of emergencies or whatever it may be. And what's happened a number of years ago, a tenant took it upon themselves to remove a suited lock. It wasn't damaged in any way, but they wanted a key for a neighbour and vice versa. So they swapped the two locks. The fire service in one of our blocks of Heights in Flint came to do an audit to make sure all the keys worked. And lo and behold, they didn't. And the reason they gave us for this was, well, when I phoned up, I was going to be charged £150 for a door lock, when I can go and buy a lock for £12 from Screwfix. So what we've done is tried to look at the cost of the repair. We do have operatives across Flintshire who are working. They may be in the road, they may be in that very property at the same time undertaking a council repair. And we feel that some of the repairs that we were charging were not a fair cost. And we want to make it affordable for tenants. And what we really want to do, if I'm being honest, is ask the tenants to report any concerns they've got or any damages that may have occurred and allow us to fix them for us at a reasonable rechargeable cost, where obviously we can agree a payment plan as well. The document goes into a lot of detail about that. But what this will allow us to do as a housing portfolio, it's a tool in order for us to advise tenants you will be recharged if you damage our property. If you leave a property and you don't give us any notification that you're leaving a council property, all those damages may be recharged to you. And also at the point of the voids policy goes into that during the notice period, we may advise tenants that you may be recharged for this. We talk about no access. Again, no access is the biggest thing for us. At some point, we may implement a no access charge. So, for example, we've been to your property 3 times. We've made an appointment on every occasion. We give you plenty of notice, and you've not allowed us in. And that is a cost to the council and to the HRA. It stops us doing other works. So again, the recharge policy is going to be a very, very good tool for our housing colleagues and our asset staff as well, who are going out assessing the condition of our homes and undertaking repairs. We do have an out-of-hours service. We're very proud of the service that we provide. We attend immediately for any emergency repair. I think everyone will know if you report a repair to us and you have any concerns, we get out there straight away. And I think to have that fallback position for tenants in the early hours of the morning where they may have accidentally damaged their property in any way, shape or form, knowing that we can attend straight away and the recharge is going to be reasonable to them, I think is going to promote more tenants to report issues to us. So what we're finding at void stage is that tenants have tried to undertake the repair themselves, but it hasn't met our standards, and certainly the materials they've used are something that we don't specify. So then we can't repair and replace. So we're going to have to start again at some point on some of the repairs they've undertaken. So there's a few levels to the recharge rate that we're looking at, but what we do reserve is the right to fully recharge for any malicious damage. So where we believe a tenant has obviously undertook that maliciously, then we'll go for full cost recovery. So I think it's a very fair and flexible policy. It's a good tool for our housing staff across the portfolio, and it's I think it's a fair policy for tenants as well. So happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, Sean. Councillor Dolphin, did you want to ask your question now?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was about the recharge for a pre-arranged visit. I just wondered, do we already charge if we've been a couple of times and they are not in after they've already arranged the visit? And if so, how many times have we actually charged the tenants? And the other one, I just wanted to say, I think that is an hour, £62. I think that is a fair price. I've paid £60 to have doors fitted, and that's per door. So I think that's not a bad price actually, for attending and then repairing or replacing the doors. So that £60 was just for them to fit them. I'd provided my own doors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dolphin. Did you want to come back, Sean?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we don't charge for any pre-arranged visits. Again, this is the idea of this policy. We do have a number of no access rates across the work areas we undertake. So this is something we need to address. And I think once we advise tenants that you will be recharged or may be recharged for no access events, then I think we're more likely to gain access first time as well. So again, this is something we need to head towards. With regards to the rates, yeah, they are reasonable. They don't include materials, and I think that's at discretion to the council, because what we find is, as I mentioned before, a tenant may replace an internal door, but it doesn't match the rest of the internal doors, or it's not compliant in terms of fire maybe. So what we really want to do, we really want to undertake that repair ourselves and then track how many repairs and rechargeable repairs have been assigned to that tenant. Again, that's really valuable information for us as an asset team, as a housing portfolio as well. So yeah, that's something that we're looking to enact, the no access, but we're working through that over the next 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Any more questions on the recharging policy? Councillor Rush, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just for Sean, really. Do we recharge tenants now for any defects in the house, that they've caused themselves? If they do, how do we collect the money? If they won't pay, once again, what do we do? Do we put that to a lost debt? In the new system, I mean, we've been around the void properties, most councillors, and we've seen really beautiful houses that you're doing at the moment, costing between £35,000 and £40,000. So if someone goes in that void property and absolutely wrecks it, where do we get that money back from? Because they're not going to be able to afford to give it us. And the point that people were making, maybe we should have more housing officers to go round. It might pay us in the end to have more housing officers to check the properties before they even get to that state. And, in the end of the day, it wouldn't cost us as much to put right. So I was just wondering how we're going to get the monies back for recharges.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Currently, yeah, we do recharge. I think this policy provides a little bit more detail about the types of recharges we're going to apply. Those recharges are raised against the tenant. We agree a payment plan with them. The success rate, we do monitor that, and you are right, there are times where some repairs need to be written off because the tenant can't afford it. But sometimes what we do, we get them to sign up and agree to that payment plan. And then obviously we can escalate that accordingly. I think what this policy is going to do, if I'm honest, is address some of those repairs that we've had to write off as a council because the costs have been too high. So for example, charging a tenant £150 for a door lock change when we've got operatives in the area anyway, we're not making a profit on that because we've got obviously an operative, we've got a vehicle, fuel, insurance, and everything else that comes with that, overheads and the back office support time, arranging that appointment. But I think by us lowering those costs and keeping them low, we're going to get a success rate for tenants reporting repairs to us, success with the repairs with the tenants paying for that repair, that rechargeable repair, but we were able to monitor it as well. So I think it's something that's going to work. I've shared this with the North Wales Assets Group as well that I chair, and they're looking into doing something similar as well. So making it affordable for tenants that actually works for us as a council overall, and pays for itself at some point. But yeah, you are right. There will be a point where we may need to say, well, we need to undertake more visits to this property. And as I said, those matrices will allow us to do that because we can target those that are damaging our assets. Hope that answers the question. Yeah, thank you.
Are our charges comparable with other authorities, Sean?
Thanks, Chair. Currently they are, but that's why we're going to move away to a more affordable recharge. So everything is quantified in terms of how much does it cost for us as a council to get there, and currently that's just too high, and that's not affordable for tenants. And I don't think it takes into consideration the efficiencies we have of undertaking that repair ourselves, and actually maybe even supplying the materials free of charge, because it means when that property becomes empty, we haven't got that repair to undertake because we've done it ourselves. So there's nothing that says currently a tenant can't replace an internal door with a different colour or a different style. But if we're able to get there and put our door on, then we can maintain all the fixtures and fittings that come along with that, because it's something we specified and something we've installed and something we know we've installed correctly as well. So yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? No. So are you going on to the next part now, Sean? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So again, the void management policy, it does go into quite a bit of what we've discussed today. What do we expect us as a council in terms of what standards we must reach? We have a couple of appendices within all these policies as well. And as I said, they're interlinked. So this will refer to the recharge policy as well. There's a number of regulations we need to meet. We've got the Rented Homes Wales Act now that states that all properties that are let must not have any repairs that are identified at letting stage. They must all be completed. But as we know, when tenants move into the homes, they may discover things that need to be reported to us. It also goes into what we're expecting to monitor. So again, those properties that may have been empty the longest and how we're calculating our rental loss on those properties, and whether we should invest in some of these properties, because as you can imagine, there are properties in Flintshire that unfortunately at times have asset failures, such as structural concerns, and that costs the council a considerable amount of money. So what we may do is place those properties on hold until we can claim some grant funding, or possibly go through our insurance policy for those properties as well. The policy goes into, as I mentioned, what are we expected to do, our obligations as a landlord, but also the obligations as a tenant. We have talked about introducing some new categories of void. So again, it's something we've mentioned over the years at this very scrutiny committee, where we've mentioned we've had in the past 3 categories of void. That's something we used to have. Currently, we only have 2. But by introducing 3 categories, where I genuinely believe we'll be able to do some more analysis of the costs, the timing in voids, and how quickly we are returning them for letting stage to housing management. We're looking at introducing a minor. So what we're suggesting happens there, proposed happens there, is that it's a property that just undertakes the electrical and gas tests. We need to undertake some minor repairs and send it back. Then we'll have a middle intermediate where we may undertake maybe some more repair work or one component renewal. So for example, a kitchen or a bathroom, again with the compliance checks. Or we may have a major where we're undertaking more than one component renewal. So for example, the tenant was quite happy with the kitchen and bathroom they had at the time. It was safe and everything was up to standard, but they just didn't want a disruption. And we find that in a lot of sheltered accommodation. So they will be the major void that comes back to us to say, well, there's 2 or 3 component replacements required. It could be a boiler, a bathroom, a full electrical rewire, or whatever it may be, along with the compliance checks. What we're also proposing to introduce is another category of void, which is the strategic void, which are those voids that maybe we've got asset concerns there where we're thinking, actually, we're not going to invest in this property because the rent that we'll get for it won't pay. So we may consider that under another sort of category of work. So they're the 4 categories we've got. 3, that will be the norm, which we used to refer to as V1, V2s and V3s. So minor, intermediate and major. and then we'll have a separate category where we say this isn't a typical void. We're going to have to assess this further and see what we need to do. The policy goes into the regulations that, again, we need to comply with. That's clearly set out in page 7 of the policy. And then we go into pre-termination. So what is the process for tenants when they terminate their occupation contract with us? And what are we expected to do? And then post-termination as well. We talk about recharges. Again, that will be clearly advised to the tenant, well, you may be recharged for this if you don't put this right, or it may be something we will be recharging you for because it's a repair we want to undertake. We talk about the viewing process. We talk about how we allocate these voids as well. And again, goes into quite a bit of detail. And this policy overlaps and links into other policies that we'll be working on, which are going to be coming live and coming to this committee at some point in the future. So happy to take any questions on that. Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any questions on the voids policy? Thank you, Councillor Rush.
Can I just ask Sean, you know, when you said we had void properties and they can't go back without all WHQ2 on, with all the different things they've got to do now, how would you propose to get over doing a V1 with just gas, electric and a few maybe internal and external rubbish? How will you get away with that one?
Yeah, so for example, those that would be classed as a minor void moving forwards, again, we've got to do quite a bit of work in the background to this. Those are the properties that maybe they've already had a lot of renewal works completed. They might be void for a short period. Unfortunately, the tenants left or passed away. So they're the voids that are truly a minor void. They're just an electrical test, a gas service and test on there, and a minor repair, whatever it may be. And those voids should be able to be returned relatively quickly. Those that undertake need further investment, they'll move up into the category. And then we can then categorise how many voids have we had at V1 or V2 or V3, those categories we used to have. I think having the two at the moment is simple. It's a good way of working. We can easily just categorise a minor or a major. But by having the three, we're able to do some more intelligent work and analysis on what the costs and what are the void times in terms of return. Is that okay? Thank you.
So, Chair, can I just come back? I think that's a very good idea, really, bringing the V1s back into circulation, because that should reduce the void numbers by quite a lot.
Thank you very much. Any more questions on the voids? No? Thank you for all you do anyway, Sean. Thank you. And we'll go to the recommendation on page 49. If you don't mind, I'm going to take off the word approve and just to endorse the contents of the 3 housing asset policies: repairs, recharges and voids. I don't think we can approve, really.
No, the report will go into cabinet for approval.
Yeah, it's above our pay grade. So could I have the mover, please? Councillor Rush, and a seconder, Councillor Healy. Thank you very much. Can I have a show in favour, please? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. That's unanimous. Right, we now go on to agenda item 12. The Homelessness and Rough Sleeper Annual Report, pages 169 to 186. And this is to provide an update to the committee on the homelessness services. And we go over to Sian Humphreys. Thank you, Sian.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, thanks everyone. Just wanted to briefly go through the annual report, and just before I sort of step into that space, it's just important to note that this report does relate to the period January to December 2025. So although it's accurate at that time, it is obviously a few months out of date now. Having said that, the demand and the pressure on the services within the homeless team are continuing to increase. So the report demonstrates that the pressures on the service are continuing to face significant pressures, particularly around cost of living, housing affordability, and ongoing issues with the unaffordable private sector. And you layer that with more increased complexities around our clients, so mental health, alcohol, substance misuse. Just during the report, the data shows us that 59% of all housing inquiries received into our service area were due to homelessness inquiries. That's quite significant. And I think it's just worth echoing Councillor Brown's point around the contact centre. And that's something we definitely need to maybe refocus on. It works to a point, but if you think about some of our clients who are sadly facing trauma and having to relive that, they might end up telling their journey 2 or 3 times before they get through to the right service area. The number of people in TA, so that's temporary accommodation, so that's all forms of emergency and temporary accommodation, varying from hotel settings through to HRA properties, private leased, self-contained properties, continues to be high, and that sort of is in line with our no one left out approach. So within the report, it showed the number of rough sleepers throughout that period. I thought it was just prudent just to bring us up to date on that figure. We've currently at the end of April, we've not yet chanced to do our reconciliation for May. We had 6 rough sleepers in Flintshire, and that would be for various reasons, but it tends to be around behaviour. So unfortunately, it's a last resort to ask someone to leave temporary accommodation and no longer be open to our service, but it does happen in some cases. The performance has, and we should be proud of that, and I think that's testament to the staff for how hard they work and their resilience, continues to be broadly positive. So we have achieved a rate of 61% prevention rate, so that's where we've been able to prevent someone entering the homeless service and accessing temporary accommodation. And we've also got a relief rate of 38%, which again is quite good considering the backdrop we're working within. The key challenges remain the same, and it's a shortage of suitable housing, particularly around the 1-bed cohort. So the data that we provide monthly to committee show that the pinch point continues to be single males under the age of 55. They represent around 69–70% of our current cohort of clients needing our support through accommodation. And yeah, the limiting on moving opportunities. So that's something Jen and I are working really hard to. What happens next? So when someone enters the service, we're in a better position with the offer of temp accommodation compared to where we were a couple of years ago. So not everybody has to enter a hotel in their first sort of experience of homelessness, but it's then what we do to move those people onto secure alternative accommodation. We are currently reviewing the Ending Homelessness Board, which Vicky chairs, and that's been twofold really. It's around Welsh Government are now sort of asking us to review our rapid rehousing transitional plan. So that's a piece of work that's on Welsh Government's radar around, if someone enters the homelessness service, how do we get them out of the service as quickly as possible? Because we do have, unfortunately, clients who are open to our service for years and months, which is not where it should be. We want people to, if they are entering our service, to then exit as quickly as we can. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It's an annual report, and it's just for members to note the contents of the report and acknowledge the continued pressures that the service is under. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have? Sorry, Councillor Dolphin, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask if we still, I've had tenants in the private sector who their landlord has decided to sell the property, and they've been, they're going to give a notice, and they've been told that they need to wait until they get that that notice from their landlord to say that they're going to be evicted. And then they're told to wait until the last minute. The pressure on that family, that household, knowing that they're going to become homeless in the first place, but then being told to wait and wait and wait, that adds extra stress onto them families, in my opinion. And I wondered, do we still do that? Are we, or are we a bit more considerate now? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dolphin. I think we do still do it. I have an example of someone in my ward, a gentleman in his 80s, and it happened to him. So, but I'll go over to Sian to explain. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dolphin, for your question. In terms of our statutory responsibility, it's 56 days where we can work with somebody for 56 days to prevent their homelessness. That's in line with the current legislation. But hopefully you'll all be aware that from April this year, Welsh Government introduced a new homeless legislation, which is being sort of implemented over a phased period. Having said that, now we can work with someone up to 6 months. What we do there, and it would be good to maybe pick this up offline around your particular client, I think, Councillor Bateman, I know who you're referring to, is we also encourage them to stay in the property, because otherwise they're entering temporary accommodation earlier than they need to. But having said that, we do recognise that does cause an absolute stress to the family. But everybody that's open to the homeless service has an allocated homeless officer who will be walking them through and explaining the process, explaining the timeline of when a landlord will have to go to court to get possession. So there are sort of, there's milestones in that process. But I do acknowledge that that is stressful for somebody, but it is it's about preventing somebody entering a hotel setting earlier than they need to. But I'm happy to pick that offline if you've got an example. Just in terms of the wider work of the team, we are in the process of onboarding 2 new embedded support workers. And actually what they're going to be looking at doing is they're going to be reaching out and working more with letting agents and landlords to say, okay, a landlord might speak to their letting agent and say, right, I'm thinking of selling my property because I want to cash in and I want to retire. What does that mean for that family? So it's getting that early information for us to be able to work with that family to see, are they on the housing register? Have they got any savings? Linking in with Jen's area for welfare reform to make sure that they're maximising their income and benefits. And it gives us that opportunity then to work more than the 56 days to try to salvage that tenancy if we can, and if not, what that looks like for that family going forward. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Salker.
There we go. Sorry if I'm putting you on the spot, and I'm quite happy to take an email from you if you don't have the answer, but we discussed last time the helpline and maybe an extension of that, because obviously, you know, if people are phoning in, they've got issues and they are homeless, really it does need to be a 24-hour service. And it's just if any more progress was made on that. Thank you, that's all. Thank you.
I can try to answer that. So in terms of yes, homelessness is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, isn't it? We know that. So we do have an out-of-hours service. So that is currently up into the end of June, manned by our colleagues that were managing the Glanavon Centre. But obviously that is coming to an end at the end of June. So what happens there is they would take the initial call via Delta, which is the corporate response to out-of-hours, and then we have homeless officers on duty. So they'll always get through to the right person, even though it's not 9 till 5. So that's really important, isn't it? And I think in terms of that, we're really now on a journey of trying to do more prevention work, so getting out and about in communities. And as part of that, what I'm looking at piloting is, at the moment, if you are presenting as homeless today at 11:30, you could ring up and we could take an assessment over the phone. I think there's much more merit in us going out to where that person is, or looking at hubs, looking at connects, where Jen's team for welfare reform are based, to go and have that face-to-face assessment, that interaction, because I think that really does sort of unpick someone's story. And it's twofold. It's to make sure we're getting all the information as it should be. And we do have cases where we might ask somebody to come in to meet with us and then they are no longer homeless and they withdraw from the service. So it's trying to sort of make sure that the people who are coming through are genuine and helping them to the best of our ability. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. That's another reason why the Connects office shouldn't be closing all the time, but that's for another place, I think. Any more questions? Sorry, Councillor Healy.
Thank you, Chair Diomba. I've got two questions. One question is, when you put homeless families in a hotel, do you get a special rate or is it the hotel rate? Because some hotels, I had a lady in my ward, and the hotel she was put in was quite, I would say about 4 or 5 star hotel. And do we get a special rate for that? My second question is, do you find there is an increase now with abuse? I mean, violent abuse in families. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So in terms of your first question, we have a variety of temp accommodation and we do have block booking arrangements with certain hotels inside Flintshire and outside of Flintshire. So that means we can lock in for 6 months and we know exactly how many rooms we are guaranteed at a certain rate. Unfortunately, because the numbers aren't kind to us, we go above those block bookings and that's where we fall into the pitfalls of dynamic pricing. So actually in February, we get a much better rate than we will in August when everyone's travelling to North Wales for holidays. So we're doing as much as we can to make that financial, and it's not about saving, it's about avoidance, try to do what we can. And as part of that, we are now going to be one of the first LAs in North Wales to look at doing a framework for temp accommodation. So it'll be a bit like liking it to Sean's area where new providers can come on and bid and tell us what they can provide. Then we are really then digging deep to make sure that we are getting value for money, because those hotel settings are, you know, they're not suitable for anybody for more than a few days and they're really costly. So I hope that answers that question. In terms of your question around presentations, we do provide monthly updates to this committee, and actually domestic abuse doesn't sit highly for the reasons why people present. We do have that data if you want me to share it with you, but it's not one of the main drivers for why people present as homeless.
I just want to thank the officer that dealt with my case, and he dealt with it so well within 2 months, which to me was fantastic. So I must say thank you very much.
Can I just,
thank you.
Sorry, can I pick that up offline with you just to know who the client was so I can find out who the officer was and give that feedback, if that's okay? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions from anyone? Councillor Bibby, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Madam Chair. Just a little bit of an observation, and apologies, this might sort of wade into very different territory in terms of development, and I think thank you very much to Kerry for that briefing that was sent. Just a little bit of a concern I've got, and I appreciate that we don't have enormous amount of control about the mix that registered social landlords do within their developments, but just looking at 3 major developments that we've had in Flintshire, by Clwyd and Allen, for an example. Monavissa, we've had 56 completions, of which 4 properties were 1-bedroom apartments. At Well Street in Buckley, there was 83 completions. I believe that's currently in the process of development, of which 16 of those properties are 1-bedroom apartments. And at the Northern Gateway site in Garden City, there were 6 1-bedroomed properties out of 100 completions. I'm just a little bit concerned that, given the fact that we've got a critical shortage of 1-bedroom accommodation that is particularly affecting the younger cohort, under 55, very much disproportionately young men. It's just, my concern is that the pace of the developments we're seeing very little development of the properties that we really critically need. And I think that's just quite said. The real difficulty we're having is providing that 1-bedroomed accommodation for people in general purpose.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, I mean, it is a great problem, really. But the thing that Sorry.
Sorry, Chief Officer wanted to respond.
Oh, let's be quiet, haven't I? Chief Officer wants to.
Thank you, Councillor Bibby, for your observations there, and you know, the statistics that Sean's presented speak for themselves in terms of that one-bed general need, and the local housing market assessment also tells us that we require 1, 2-bed and 4+ bedroom larger homes. You know, that's the strategic need that we have in Flintshire. In terms of the development, the council are asked to review schemes that come in and then prioritise them. And, you know, where we prioritise is based on that strategic housing need, but also that ability to deliver, so capable of getting on site within that financial year so that we use up all the funding that we have available. But you know, as members will be well aware, we've spent a lot of time looking at what we can do ourselves around some of this, and obviously the massive amount of work that Jen and her team did around the sheltered housing review to free up some of those one-bed general need. You know, we were talking that we redesignated, you know, 900 units there to create general need, one-bed general need accommodation. But I do agree with you around the development, but building estates full of one-bed general need properties is not desirable either. So we do need to get that mixed tenure right. But, you know, I can assure you that Paul and his team, you know, when prioritising that scheme, would look at what the needs in Flintshire are and work with those RSL and developer partners to make sure that we get the right mix on those estates.
Thank you, Vicky. Can I just talk about, beg your pardon?
No.
Okay. 1.03 on page 171, it highlights, this is the biggest problem to me. It's over 50% of all presentations for housing are homeless presentations, of which I should imagine a very high percentage of those are single occupancy ones. I mean, it's a big problem in this county, I think. And unfortunately, the numbers keep on rising. I don't know what the solution is, and perhaps, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, in terms of them 1.3, that's around 59% of all housing telephone inquiries that have come in. So every we get stats from Julie Bellis in the contact centre, and we get that breakdown. But yeah, they will be around homelessness applications, social housing inquiries. I think it's just worth mentioning we had just shy of £100,000 allocated to us at the start of this financial year from Welsh Government in terms of the new legislation that came in from April. That new legislation hasn't yet hit us. It's a very slow burning legislation change. So as it stands at the moment, there's been no significant impact to how we're asked to deliver legislation. And it's quite comforting to know that actually the way we operate as a service already, those changes aren't going to be massive for us. Because we work as we should, we work in line with legislation and we're person-centred. What we've decided to do with that money, because we are at the end of a restructure, so hopefully you will all be aware that we went through a regrowth restructure from around 30 members of staff to around 70, 75 full-time equivalent. And what we've decided to do with that money is split it into 2 senior roles and one be a prevention lead. So earlier I started talking around how we get out and about in communities and how we work really smartly to prevent people being homeless if we can. We do have to acknowledge that sometimes we can't prevent someone being homeless, but where we've got that opportunity, it gives us more time to do so. So what we're in the process of doing, and it has only just sort of come to light, is around a prevention lead. And the idea will be that they'll be able to go out and shift it from being a crisis-led, sorry, looking at the rain out there, a crisis-led service. So we have 60% of clients unfortunately present on the day. Well, there's nothing we can do to save someone's tenancy or prevent them, provide mediation for parents. So it's around how we get out and about in communities and we raise our profile as well. Because quite interestingly, we had a chat with somebody and they asked their husband, what would you do if you were homeless? And he said, oh, I think I'd ring the police. So actually there's a lot more work around raising our profile around how we can support. And what we're expecting the benefits of this role to be will be early indication of households at risk and marrying that up again with Jen's area to make sure they're maximising their benefit, they're entitled to the right level of support. It will increase better outcomes. So if we've got less people needing our support, we'll be able to really focus our support on those who are open to us. And it'll reduce the demand on temp accommodation, which obviously is twofold because nobody wants to be in a homeless setting, but it'll also reduce the financial pressure on the organisation as well. So we're just starting to scope that out now and how we do that, and there'll be pilots as part of that around maybe doing something around the contact centre, and we trial something that we have a direct line for a while, and how we can work closely with citizen advice. Can we work out job centres? And it's really getting that presence, and hopefully we'll see some benefits of that in the next 12 months.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown was indicated.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Just touching on what Councillor Sean Bibby said about developers and properties, and I think it's, I'll say it again, it's really important that, don't just keep developing in the D-side area for these one-bedroom properties. Other towns and villages are available. We should be looking at that because everyone, anyone that does present as homeless does not just particularly come from the D-side area, do they? Nor should they just be plonked in the D-side area, or actually along the strip all the way down to Flint. So that's more, it's not really a question, it's a statement, isn't it? It's one that I've been saying for a while. But my question is, where have the pods gone from Queen's Ferry?
Yeah, happy to answer that. Yeah, so in terms of Glenavon, and the contract and the planning permission expires at the end of this month. So the team have worked extremely hard from March to move on 26 quite complex people. So what we've been able to do is it's working with Jen in terms of sheltered housing review, D2. So we've been able to do that quite quickly, actually. And I think that's just testament to how hardworking the team are and how dedicated they are to making changes. So yeah, it goes at the end of June. It'll be handed back over as a corporate asset. So as part of that, the bunker bins have all been removed. And I think it's a good news story. When I talked earlier around the 2 new embedded support workers, they're actually the manager and the assistant manager from Glenavon, which is really encouraging. So now they're coming to work with us. In terms of the wider staff at Glenavon, we are going through a piece of work around doing floating support. So obviously we recognise that those 28 bed spaces were critical, and actually who would normally access Glenavon will have to go somewhere else. So if we have more floating support to support those clients, we're going to get better outcomes. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Probably not for you, but it's just a question. So that will become a council asset. And are there any plans currently in place for discussions about what the future of that site may be?
Thank you. Is anybody going to answer that?
Yeah, Chief Officer is indicated.
Chief Officer, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not aware of any plans, so I will say that in terms of answering the question. However, Sean's been working closely with Rod Taylor in terms of handing that property over. So, because we want to think about the security on the site and whatever else. But so corporate assets are very aware they're getting the property back at the end of June. And obviously they'll be the ones now considering what the future of the site looks like.
Councillor Brown.
Some years ago, before it was a temporary, which is like the longest temporary accommodation that's lasted, hasn't it, in Flintshire. Before that, I did previously see plans for a row of terraces on that site, and I just wondered if that was still part of the plan.
Anyone got an answer?
I know it belongs to corporate asset management, and so Rod Taylor would be the one dealing with that at the moment. But if anything like that was to come forward to planning, it would come through David Fitzsimons and myself, so I'd probably be cited on that, and I'm not cited on that presently.
It's still an aspiration, I think, Councillor Brown. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Banks.
Thank you, Chair. I know that they need 1-bedroom apartments, but the 1 beds they have put in my area with not a lot of local people in them have been a nightmare from day one, and they're still a nightmare. The people that are living in them, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them have wrecked windows, doors, pulled cupboards, doors off in the kitchens, persecuted the neighbours, and it literally has been a nightmare from when the people have gone in there. Now, the 2 beds, there hasn't been one issue in the 2-bed apartments, but the 1 bed, if they were getting built, you know, I think they should look at the area, like Helen said, the area that they're putting them in before they do it, because some of the people, and they might have been homeless, but some of them didn't appreciate how nice these apartments were, and you know, they totally wrecked them, and it's not fair. It's not fair to the neighbours. It's not fair to some of the people that are living there, but I really think that they should look if there's a need for the people living around there to have 1 beds before they build them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just ask who oversees perhaps the apartments that Councillor Banks is talking about?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we are well aware of the issues down in your ward area, and they are actively being managed by Housing Management.
Have you seen an improvement at all, Councillor Banks?
Sorry, Chair. It's sort of, and this sounds stupid, but I think when the ones that don't work get their money, which, you know, that's up to them what they spend their money on, but what they do is buy beer or whatever, and then they persecute the neighbours and wherever in the weekend. It's worse when we have nice weather, because they sit outside in the front, and it's literally about, I'd say, 2 or 3 yards from a whole block of pensioners' bungalows. And them pensioners have lived in that area for a long time. And if I was a county councillor when they were getting built, there's no way I'd have let them get built, because they're a total nightmare. And I mean, I've been there 3 or 4 times to the lads that are drinking and persecuting the people, because they've been urine, you know, weeing all over the fences, playing music, blurring it out. They have gone a bit better, but it's still not 100%. But, you know, what I can say is the 2-bed, not one issue. The 1 bed, I feel like taking one flight off them or putting another bedroom somewhere, because they have been a nightmare from day one. And to be fair, the council have tried, you know, Andy's tried, they have tried, but they won't let them. Half of them say they didn't see what was happening. One day, I tell you, went straight through a front window. The police were never away from there. It was like in the village, to call it Cop City. And it's just been a nightmare. And it's worse because now the old dears can't sit in their back gardens in the summer because they're just blaring and shouting. But we'll see what the warmer weather brings.
Okay.
Persecution, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Banks. Well, I think she did say that there had been a slight improvement, I think so. Any more questions?
Councillor Healy.
Councillor Healy, thank you.
Thank you. I'm very happy that Councillor Banks brought this. In my ward, I've got pensioners' bungalows. My question is, why do we mix unsociable people in pensioners' bungalows, because in my ward, there has been. I've had a gentleman running naked with a knife. I have had another one drinking. And this is mixed in this complex where there is pensioners' bungalows. I know it's a criticism. I know it's a hard work where you find people, but don't we assess first and see that this is vulnerable pensioners and we should not mix them with other people? Thank you, Chair.
I've got sympathy with you there. Anybody want? Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a policy where we don't mix ages. So we would allocate somebody to a sheltered accommodation if they're over the age of 55. That doesn't mean that everybody over the age of 55 doesn't have issues. So the criteria for the sheltered accommodation is the age. You know, we can't, the housing need is based on the housing need, not whether how unsociable or otherwise that person is. You know, we do have a pre-allocations panel that's been in place for about 18 months now, I think, where if we are placing somebody that's known through Sean's service from a homeless route or temporary accommodation or whatever, we assess the risk, and then as a group we look at from all angles and what that risk is based on where the potential allocation is going to be. And that panel operates to understand if we are going to place somebody who's potentially a risk, how do we mitigate that risk? Because at the end of the day, you know, we do have a duty to house people. So the sheltered accommodation question, I understand, and I also understand, I'm well aware of many issues across the county, actually, where, you know, we have had people maybe that have been living there for many, many years in a really quiet little sheltered scheme, and somebody comes who qualifies for that scheme but has quite a chaotic lifestyle, being somebody who would qualify for social housing, and myself, not social housing, for sheltered accommodation now, you know, we can't say that once you reach the age of 55, and I'm not talking about myself here, but you know, all your issues go away and you don't have some of those social issues that a lot of our residents do have. In terms of trying to provide you with some assurance, we do have the pre-allocations panel, and where there's a known risk, we do try and mitigate that and make sure that the allocation is a safe one and all the support is in place.
So you are trying to tell me now that there is no more pensioners' bungalows, because it's called sheltered accommodation. So if there was, when I took over my ward, there was a patch of pensioners' bungalows. So are you trying to tell me now that there is no more pensioners' bungalows? It's now sheltered accommodation, and you can put whoever fit that criteria there?
That's not a new thing. It's been over 55's accommodation. I think it's been named pensioners' bungalows because historically that's what they were known as. And it's always been over 55. Actually, the sheltered housing review we did have some accommodation in the county that was over 50, and it was called a mini scheme. We've removed that now. So all sheltered accommodation, which is previously known as pensioners' bungalows, is over 55. And to my knowledge, it's always been over 55. So there's been no change to the process or the access. But what we can't and won't do is allocate to pensioners who are very gentle and sweet and want to drink cups of tea. We can't judge on that. At the end of the day, it's based on somebody's housing need, and we have a qualifying criteria for sheltered accommodation being over 55.
There are exceptions though, aren't there? If they come in as homeless, they don't have to be 55.
No, we still do apply that criteria. We do vary it sometimes if there's an access issue around an adaptation, because what we don't have in our stock, and we talked about this quite a lot in the sheltered housing review, we don't have general needs accommodation that's accessible. So all of our accessible properties were sheltered accommodation. That's just the way the stock was built many, many years ago. So, but if we are varying the age, that's done very carefully and through management reports so that we get all of the information we can. So we do vary age for accessibility, but we don't vary age for general allocation.
Okay, Councillor Dolphin.
Thank you, Chair. That must be a new thing then, because and I've said this before in a meeting many years ago, I had a tenant who was an absolute nightmare in the block of flats, and he wasn't 50. I'd have said he was probably around about maybe 40, 45 at a push, and he was drinking, he had drugs, he'd have all his mates around. It was an absolute nightmare for all his neighbours. And he was moved to what I'm going to say is the pensioners' bungalows. And I went mad. I'm like, what are you doing? And do you know what? I had to have the officer go out there once to remind him not to play his music. After that, he has been the perfect tenant. He doesn't have his mates around. I'm not going to say he doesn't drink, but he's not making all the noise. He's not playing his music like he used to. And he will help the other neighbours. He will help some of the pensioners there. So there are occasions when it does work, having somebody younger in with the older. He may be over 50 now, because it's probably about 10 years or so ago that he moved. But yeah, it does work occasionally. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Salcott.
Hi. It's just something that Councillor Healy touched on, so it might not be, I might need to speak to Councillor Healy separately, but I've got 3 young granddaughters that live in that area, and the naked man with a kitchen knife causes a little bit of concern for me. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I think there's someone else you need to talk to as well as Councillor Healy. The both of you do. Okay. Any more questions? Councillor Banks.
Sorry, Chair, but I'll have to leave. I've got to get my dad out of bed. I'm awful sorry, but he can't get up on his own. Thanks a lot anyway. Thank you.
You're a great asset to this committee. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
So are there any more questions? No. So we'll go to the recommendation on page 170. And it's to endorse the report and to continue to support the work being undertaken by the Housing Support and Homelessness Service. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Brown, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Rush, thank you very much. Could you all show, please? Thank you.
Carried, Chair.
That's carried, thank you. So now we're back over to Sean again. For the Housing Support and Homelessness update. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is just back to business as usual. This is the monthly update around our presentations and our data. So I'll just go through May. So we assessed, we had completed, 140 housing triages. So they would come through the contact centre and through the relevant teams. And out of that 140, 97 clients were assessed as being homeless or threatened with homeless. We've included the data for prison leavers for some time now, and you can see there as part of those figures 4 were prison leavers. I've actually asked for some more data around prison leavers for the last few months because that does feel quite low. So just interested to know what the average has been since we started recording that data. And then in terms of the most common reason for homeless presentations, it tends to be the same reasons again, which are listed: loss of rented accommodation, relatives and friends no longer wishing to accommodate, and relationship breakdown with parents. In terms of clients accessing temp accommodation, it's 598. And at the end of May. I had a quick look yesterday, and that's just 602 at the moment, which we've never been at that level before. So that 600 plus figure is significant. Again, further breakdown there around clients accessing out-of-county placements. So for everybody, if you're not already aware, we do unfortunately have to rely on hotels in Chester and out of county towards Denbighshire as well. Positively, we've seen 37 clients move on from temp accommodation into permanent accommodation, whether that be social, private, intermediate rents through Titeg. So that's again really encouraging. And then we just give a final placement overview then around where those 598 clients are. And interestingly, you can see we've currently still got one, or we did have at the end of May, one client accessing the Homeless Hub, but that will be removed from forward updates. We won't be using that anymore. Again, I think it's really prudent to look at the emergency accommodation. So that tends to be our hotels and B&Bs, and that is still quite high, 244 clients in accommodation. And then finally, the age range. Again, this is nothing new in terms of what the data telling us. But again, the first column, 70%, nearly 71%, sorry, are single males under the age of 55 accessing our accommodation.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank
Last time we were together.
It does, yeah.
Okay. Last time we were together, I think the request was, could we have more months shown on these so we can have a fuller picture to just see how the figures are? I mean, unfortunately, they're going up all the time, but if, for instance, they do begin to come down, we can see the full picture rather than just 2 months. Any questions? No?
Sorry,
Oh, Sean's coming back.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, we can do that. And maybe what we can do, I think I did mention it actually, around maybe doing the quarterly as a bulky update. And then if you want the 2 months prior and then the reporting month as well, that'll give you that flavour of that kind of rolling data, won't it?
Please.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.